Hello, welcome to Voyage to Space, where we embark on a journey to better understand the cosmos. We explore different topics related to space like dark matter, time dilation, and what space is. Today on a voyage, we'll be interacting with another explorer on a voyage to the cosmos, a female astrophysicist to be precise. As part of the Role Model series, we'll be learning from experiences of an astrophysicist on a voyage to space. Dr. Lamiya is currently a Dunlap Post-Doctoral Fellow at the Dunlap Institute for Astronomy and Astrophysics in the University of Toronto. Her research revolves around understanding galaxy formation and evolution and studying the structural evolution of massive galaxies in the early universe. She's a member of several James Webb Space Telescope teams and behind the 3D Dash, the widest near-infrared imaging by the Hubble Space Telescope. She's an advocate for equal opportunities in scientific research for students from countries with limited access to resources. And I'm extremely excited to talk to you. So, first of all, you planned to major in neuroscience when you came to Wellesley College. So, what changed your mind and led you to astrophysics?
Yeah, so I came to, well, first of all, thank you so much, Abuba, for having me on this wonderful show. I went to Wellesley College from, when I was 18. That was like my first time away from home, away from my country, away from my mom. And the reason I think I chose neuroscience, or I thought I would study neuroscience, was my family wanted me to be a doctor, like a medical doctor. And I did not want to be a medical doctor, but I was very fascinated by human brain, how brain functions, how it is like all the pathways of neurons, electrical transmission through the neurons. How does that lead to consciousness, and those type of questions were in my mind. So I thought that neuroscience was the one that comes closest to becoming a medical, fulfilling my mom's dream of being a medical doctor, but also me trying to kind of study fundamental science. But when I came to Wellesley, my first year, the neuroscience courses were extremely popular, and I could not register for the course. And I was looking for another course, and there was this Professor Richard French, who was a member of the Cassini space mission. He was teaching this course in astronomy. It was like the beginner's level course, Astro 101, where you kind of go through from the Big Bang to, to the Earth now, to that scale. And he was just standing in the middle of the Science Center at Wellesley College and like giving this, very nice speech of like how the universes began at the Big Bang, and how the first stars were born, and how galaxies were formed, and how galaxies evolved, and how planets came about. And I thought that was just the coolest thing I have ever heard. So I, of course, signed up for his course. And during that course, we had a lab component to that course. So we had 4 classes in the morning, and then at night, once a week, we would go look through the telescopes. And Wellesley College had this amazing, really old telescopes that were used by women back in, 100 years, 150 years ago. This long Newtonian telescopes curved out of a single tree. You kind of get the clearest picture of Saturn and its rings through these telescopes. And I think like the moment I looked through one of these telescopes was when I knew that, this is what I want to do. So it was, that's how I moved from neuroscience to astronomy, I guess. It was
really fascinating. From then on. Were your parents supportive of your decision to change your field of study, or did you have to convince them?
I had to convince them a little. I think both of them, my mom and my dad, they understood that I was very interested in this topic. They didn't quite understand what I was going to study, what I was talking about at the beginning, when I was telling them that I want to study astronomy. But yeah, I didn't think it was too much of a jump, a leap of for them. It was a leap of faith. I told them that this is something that is very interesting to me that I would like to study, and they were encouraged from then on. Yes.
That's great. And did you have a role model growing up? And if yes, then who was it?
I guess I studied physics uh, I think my eighth grade was when we first started studying physics. And I was, very fascinated by Marie Curie. I think we came across her in, a, in our book in the nuclear physics section. Um, I would not say that I had a whole lot of role models. I was just fascinated by people who were um, very invested in the work that they were doing, and the same way that Marie Curie was. I thought that was like the story of her life was extremely sad, but at the same time, it was her passion to like go, to that length for her work. That I found was very interesting for me. Um, in college, there were physicists like Nargis Mowla, who works at LIGO. I thought she was a very, again, a very strong role model that I wanted to follow. Muhammad Zafar Iqbal from Bangladesh. He's a popular science writer. He's also a physicist by training. He's a physics professor. I just love the way he, explained science to general people who might not have been interested in science in a way that just made everyone fascinated about anything that he's talking about. So, yeah, I would say they are my role models.
That's great. And why did you decide to study abroad? And what was the process of making the decision to study at Wellesley College?
Yeah, so I wanted to study abroad because I knew I wanted to study physics. That was something that was again I was interested by physics from the first time um, it came across it in eighth grade. And I wanted to do, no matter what type of science I did, I wanted to do experimental work. I wanted to do research. I wanted to be in the lab. And unfortunately, there weren't so many opportunities available back in Bangladesh for me to be doing research as an undergraduate student. Research was something that people did when they went away from master's or their PhD level, but I wanted to get started right away. I just could not wait. And that's why I decided to apply for college. Now, the reason why I chose Wellesley was because Wellesley is also it's a women's college, and they specialize in their motto is creating strong female leaders, and that's something that I was very excited about. It also required the least amount of convincing from my parents because they thought that it was safe for me to go to a women's college when I was moving away from home. So, all of those came together. The other interesting part about Wellesley was that I could take any courses. Wellesley is cross affiliated with MIT, so I could take any courses I wanted at MIT. So that also was another reason.
So, what was your experience studying in a different country, and what skills did you acquire by living independently?
Yeah, so the place that I first moved to when I left my country was Wellesley College, and I couldn't have found a better home to be, away to be my home away from home. So what made the experience so special was in Wellesley, in my year, there were about over 100 international students who started at the same time. They came from all over the world. So that when I started, all these other people who came there were also in the same situation as me. Most of them have not left home. This is their first time being away from home. We are all mostly like 18 to 20-year-olds. And we come from very different parts of the world with very different experience. That is not an American experience. So I think that gave us all a same footing that we were exploring the US together. We were exploring living away from home together. And that's what I think made the process so smooth. If I had to do it on my own, it would have been very hard. But because we all did it together, it was just a wonderful experience where I also realized that learn to respect others' culture, learn to love others' culture, learn to ask questions and not make any assumptions about others' experience, and take, realize that everybody had their own cultural mindset about, when we are thinking about certain situations, we're all thinking about thinking from the standpoint of our cultural mindset, but then we're also learning to think in a new way. And that's what made it like a very fascinating experience. Um, it was hard. It was hard being away from home a lot. My first year was, I guess I was very homesick. But I guess in terms of like the challenges of learning to be on your own, I think that part was made a lot smoother by just being with this family, with this other group of people who were also doing the same thing, and we were just all learning together at the same time. So it was a fun time.
That's great. Like you're not alone. You're always with group of people who are facing the same thing. So you don't have to be scared.
Exactly. Yeah.
So did you face a dilemma in making a choice to either go back to Bangladesh and help in its development or stay in a country that has better resources and opportunities for you to thrive?
Absolutely, and I face that dilemma to this day. It's not something that goes away. I took some time off after I graduated from Wellesley College before going to grad school, and I went back home and I started working on the outreach side because that's something that I was really also another part of. And another thing from just doing research, that's something that I was interested in. And I think what I realized that I had also grown in a way that I could not adapt to being in Bangladesh anymore. I craved that family of people from all around the world around me. But I guess I was having struggle getting back to a monolithic culture, a homogeneous culture where everybody around me was from the same culture. And I craved learning from others about and solving problems from very different ways. And that's why, and also just the possibility of doing research. That's what drove me to graduate school. But when I came back to graduate school and I was doing research, and I finished my PhD, and the James Webb was right around the corner. I just couldn't resist but continuing my research here in Canada because I really wanted to be doing the research, the type of opportunity that I probably would not have been able to continue if I was back at home. Having said that, you brought up contributing to the development of in Bangladesh. I am still trying to come up with find ways of continuing that work while being here. I realize that maybe I might be able to actually bring better opportunities for Bangladeshi students, if I have access to more resources over here, and if I can actually create that pipeline of drawing the resources from here and bringing it to the students back at home, maybe I will be of more use rather than me going back home and not thriving in the way that I would like to. I am, now used to being around people from all different countries, different cultures, different religious backgrounds, different sexual and gender identities. And that's something that I was really missing back in Bangladesh, and something that I want to steep myself in for my life again.
That's so nice too, and I hope you're able to do that in the future. So you were a research intern at the University of Oxford and a research student at the Anglo-Australian Observatory in Sydney. Did you think traveling to different countries broadened your spectrum of thought? And what was that experience like for you?
Absolutely. You know, being a research assistant at University of Oxford, we were working on Bose-Einstein condensates. And the lab that I was on was called ultra cold quantum matter group. It was a quantum lab where we were trying to um, take images of uh, take snapshots of the Bose-Einstein condensates, like the state of being, here and there all at once. Um, and it's I realized that and then like I said, I went to Anglo-Australian Telescope where it was purely astronomy research. We were actually we had the opportunity of going to the telescope, the AAT telescope, in Siding Springs. They I think I realized that the research, how people do research is very different in different parts of the world. So in US or in North America, it's very go type of culture where people maybe don't have as much work-life balance as I would, one would hope. Whereas in University of Oxford, I think there was a little bit more laid-back culture, but then also people were less collaborate, like they were asking less questions around them. It was a more of a lone wolf culture. Again, something that I was like, maybe that's not something that I would like to be doing. um, Australia, I actually very much enjoyed. It was very laid back. People have a very strong sense of work and life, and also when they are at work, they try to enjoy their life. I really so I think these are the different elements that now that I'm in Canada, which sort of has a mix of the North American and the European and some part of Australian culture in it, because here people are from everywhere. Um, so I try to bring elements, like the elements that I deemed as um, parts that I wanted to bring into my um, way of doing work. And I try to mimic that and try to impart that to my students, that that you need to be enjoying your work. The first and foremost, you need to be very happy about what you're doing, because if you're not happy, you're not productive. And if you're not productive, then it doesn't matter um, what happens. So all of those things, I think, having that experience from all around the world really helped.
That's great. And how was your experience working with the Canadian team on the James Webb Space Telescope?
Oh, it's been very, 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 thankfully, very great so far. I started in the middle of the pandemic, which was not the great time to be starting. So I came to Canada in September 2020, and as soon as I came, everything was already closed, and we went into this lockdown. So for a year and a half, we were working at home. For almost 2 years, we were working at home, and all the teammates that we knew were through Zoom calls, through the screen. And this is the first time last week that we actually met each other in person, or for me at least, I met everyone in person because I'm a new member to the team. And we are all, we knew these people already through Zoom, but now we are getting to know each other through coffee breaks, through dinners. We're talking about other things. We're learning about each other very much more, and it's those type of experiences that we've been missing, because the best scientific ideas always happen over coffee breaks, in a restaurant, and when you're just not really talking about work, but sometimes you just start talking about science because you're so excited about this new data that came, and you're talking about did you see that galaxy? What do you think that is? Why do you think that has those really different features that we haven't seen before? And then you come up with these great ideas. Um, so that's been happening a lot in the past 2 weeks, and it's been absolutely great. Yeah.
Like the pandemic put a stop to networking, and now that things are opening up, you're able to interact more. That's really awesome. So, what is a skill that you require as an astrophysicist that you didn't think you would be requiring at all?
I think how how much managerial and administrative and leadership skills. I think they don't teach you that in graduate school. They don't talk about that in graduate school. That's not something you can quantify in a GRE exam or any types of physics exam or a thing, but whenever you are working on a project, whenever you're leading a project, those type of skills are what actually makes or breaks a project. Everybody has very good analysis techniques in their mind. Those are the things that we actually train for. How proper we learn statistics, we learn math, we learn all about galaxy evolution. We read all the papers, and those are the things that we're investing our time into learning. But I think we really underestimate um, the interpersonal relationship skills, and then the skills that are needed to make sure to set the goals and to set a timeline to figure out, if everyone who's working in a project, if they're working well together, if they're unhappy about something, what can you do to help, make the work situation a little better for them. So those type of skills are something that are very much underappreciated, and I would say especially in South Asia, those are the things that we don't really talk about at all in our when we are doing studying in school. We need to talk more about writing skills. We need to talk more about talking skills. We need to talk more about public speaking skills, explaining our work, explaining our research to the general public. So those type of skills, so communication skills, and then leadership skills. I think those are the things that I wasn't told that are necessary part, but that's something that you actually learn on the job.
I think even in India, they don't really focus on these skills. They think that as a scientist, you're just working alone, you're not working with other people. So when times get stressful, what do you think of that constantly pushes you to move forward and keep working?
We lose track of the big picture. We get so focused on the small details, this one code of yours that is not running, this one bug that you're stuck on, this one paragraph on your paper that you want to write, but you can't, you're just having a writer bug. We just so get bogged down in the details that we miss the big picture. And actually doing this type of uh, outreach type of work, that's what helps me continue working. Because it's only when I'm speaking to non-astronomers that I actually am forced to think about the big picture. Because you won't be talking to others about your bug, right? You will be talking about what is it that James Webb Space Telescope is trying to understand about the universe, the very big picture of it. And those are things that we don't think on a day-to-day basis. So I think those are my that's what keeps me going, because I'm constantly reminded whenever I'm doing research, I'm constantly reminded of the big picture and what we're here for, what we're actually trying to accomplish. The other thing is I try to do, it's great to have hobbies and me times, self-care times. So anything that you find, so, me spending time with my cat or painting or just going on a walk with my husband, those type of things are extremely necessary. And that's what, the type of things that you should be putting as much emphasis on as, um, making sure that you're writing a proper code.
Yes. So do you have any book recommendation, or what are your favorite popular science books?
My favorite science book. So there's this book by Stephen Hawking, The Grand Design. That's one of my favorite books. Carl Sagan's Cosmos is a great book. I like reading a lot of Muhammad Zafar Iqbal and Humayun Ahmed books from Bangladesh. Those are, I think I've read all of them, that everything that they have written ever. I really loved Brick Lane by Monica Ali. Yeah, so I really love the book Brick Lane by Monica Ali. Love Jhumpa Lahiri books, anything that she has written. Yeah, so lots of them.
Thank you so much. I'll definitely check them out. What advice do you have for a 14-year-old who is interested in astrophysics?
I would say just do what you like doing, just follow your dreams and though they are very I know they people say that all the time, but it's very important to stay true to where you are, what you are. There's one if you want to have like a professional advice, I would say try learning by doing rather than by just reading books. That's something that has helped me a lot. I think everything that I have learned about physics as a high school student or as a undergraduate student came from the times I spent in the lab and not so much from solving equations um, and reading books. It's only when you are, and that includes like writing your own piece of code and trying to making something work. If you're someone who's into simulations and those type of things, it's only I feel that for me it has always helped when I do something and because physics is extremely logical and so is astrophysics, right? Because it's all coming from the first principle. It can be very intuitive until you're going to quantum physics and it stops being intuitive to some extent. But it's only when you are doing something and you're hypothesizing or you are kind of thinking that okay, this is what I would expect it to do, and then you see it working out or not working out, and then you ask yourself that why is it that it worked, that means that my hypothesis was true, or maybe it was two wrong things that they assumed that they kind of cancel each other out and it worked out. So it's only by doing these type of things and asking yourself at every step the questions that if it worked or if it didn't work, in both cases why it worked and why it didn't work, that you actually understand what is going on. And that's what we do with our astronomy work. We think galaxy forms in a certain way, but these things they happen in such a large time scale over billions of years that we actually have no way of testing if it actually works or not. So we write all these computer simulations. We uh, try to come up with them, understand them through our physical knowledge. But we are always realize that it might be that we are showing two things that are very wrong, that are canceling each other out or making our theory right. So even if your thing works out, you have to constantly ask yourself that why it works. And that's something that you don't really get an intuition of when you are reading a book, when you are just reading, studying something from the book, because it's a very passive way of learning. It's not an active way of learning. So your brain is not fired up in a way as it is when you're actually doing something. So, for any 14-year-old at any age, doesn't have to be 14, even if you're a 98-year-old who's interested in astronomy or any kind of fundamental science, that's the best way to think of something. Yeah.
That's really good advice. Thank you. And finally, what do you think is the best part of being an astrophysicist?
And the best part of being an astrophysicist for me is going observing. I love telescopes. Like those are my true love. So every time I go to the mountain tops and just look to and get prepared for the whole night of observing, and then the first time the date actually comes, nothing can beat that experience. And those are the moments that they pray for. And now with James Webb, with space telescopes, you're actually not going anywhere to do the observing yourself. But this, like what happened 2 weeks before when the first data from James Webb came, and we all gathered to look at it for the first time. Like those are the moments that you cherish, and that's the best part of being an astronomer.
That's great.